there's one person who I'm about to introduce who is a force of nature when it comes to sort of envisioning the future and investing in the future, and in fact going and making the future happen. And that is Reid Hoffman, the executive chairman of LinkedIn. And as a force of nature, just to sort of read the companies that he's been an angel investor in, Dig, Facebook, Flickr, Zynga, I mean, that's pretty damn good. He is a partner at Greylock Partners and the executive chairman and founder of LinkedIn. I think, Reid, you've been with us since the earliest days of SU, sort of watching it. And so I welcome you to, and thank you for coming and giving of your time. So this is our sort of 3-year book report to you. Welcome, Reid. Thank you.
Very nice introduction. After Peter and Ray have been speaking, I fear that some of my comments may be a little redundant about the optimism of what an individual can do with an entrepreneurial mindset. But I still think that in this crowd and this endeavor, it's worth making those points again anyway. What I would like to do is talk a little bit about how these patterns of entrepreneurship aren't just ways that we build companies, but also ways that we can lead meaningful lives and have massive impact upon the world. And I think it's very apropos that Singularity University is in Stanford, not Stanford, near Stanford, in Silicon Valley, and that the patterns by which you invest and create these companies are ways that you can think about organizations for causes and individual lives as well. And so I thought I would kind of make kind of 3 types of remarks. One is about how I look at kind of investing in these companies, what I think is interesting and unique about Silicon Valley. The next is how this can actually apply to causes, and the third is how it applies to individual lives. On the first part, when I'm looking at a company that I may invest in, I ask a couple of questions. I ask questions like, what are the hypotheses that, if true, could make this company impact millions to hundreds of millions of people in their lives? And if those hypotheses turn out to be true, how is it you get the breakout in order to getting there? Now, one of the things that's particularly important when you look at these things is that the hypotheses need to be something to really actually usually achieve something of note in a company. The hypotheses have to be something that's actually somewhat contrarian to the mass of folks. Because, if everyone goes, well, I think breathing air is a really good thing, I'm going to package air, I'm going to sell it. There is actually a funny spoof about this, I think, about pitching venture capitalists on packaging air online if you want to do the search. But it's not that, it's not that contrarian. Maybe in space, but not otherwise. So the real key question is, how do you see something that other people don't see? Then the question is, how do you get there? And the kinds of questions that you ask when you're looking at these companies is, what competitive edge do you have? What competitive differentiation? What can you do that is different? And the contrarian view of how the world is going to be if you can possibly get there. And if you apply this sort of stuff to companies in terms of kind of the thought of, because one of the things that's key, of course, is they have to be something you can do. All Silicon Valley startups that are really interesting start with a very small number of people. And so one of the kind of final questions that I ask when I'm looking at these companies is, I have this phrase, Archimedean lever, which if you look at other talks I've given, I've mentioned that phrase before. And the reason why I mention it is not because I have a particular affinity for the Greeks. My heart goes out to them right now. But because the whole idea is, what compact lever can you construct by which you can change the world? Is it a piece of technology? Is it an organizational design? Is it a market opportunity? Now, so that's kind of how I look at companies, and that's, you look at LinkedIn, you look at Facebook, you look at Zynga, Flickr, those are the questions I was asking when I was looking at those, when they were either an initial website or a design. But one of the things when you think about these things is they're not just ways of creating, potentially multi-billion-dollar companies. They're also ways to think about how do we change the world. And so there's a number of kind of for-cause organizations that when I find them, I agree to participate in some way. And I'll go through a few of them to show that these same techniques aren't just how you build multi-billion-dollar companies, but also how you can use these levers in order to change the world. So a local one is Kiva, right, which is tackling poverty. And the basic idea is say, well, we could use this software in order to create a marketplace for microfinance. The business can be self-sustaining because you can do it on small parts of donations as you're doing it, and you can make the notion of empowering, because there's kind of two levels of entrepreneurship when I think about how do you change the economic ecosystems in these other worlds. One is, okay, how do you do the high impact entrepreneurs? How do you build the big, huge companies and have that cycle? But the other kinds of entrepreneurs are taxi cab drivers, small business owners. And how do you enable all of that? And the basic thought is, well, you can create a marketplace online and create peer-to-peer connections. And it uses this technology in order to create a large flow of capital that can go to these individuals and change their lives. Another one based in New York is Do Something. And the basic idea is in the same kind of aspirational, individuals can change the world. How do you get to the younger group while doing it, right? Peter was talking about, how you can broaden Singularity University to get there. But part of that is to say, I can make a difference in a cause. And so what Do Something says is that, well, the best thing to do is, teenagers work together, work together in high schools and in networks. What can they do that doesn't require a check, a car, or parental involvement, where they can identify these causes and go make a difference and do something? And to share the knowledge, information, intelligence, opportunity flow, collaborate together to make that happen. And it's part of where you get the experience by doing, right? That, oh yes, my life matters, there's something I can do in the world. And then the last, I guess I'll mention is another New York one, which is Donors Choose, which is, a teacher, right, had no background in technology, basically said, look, I think that there's all kinds of innovation that we can do in the classrooms. The problem is we have no way to enable the teachers as entrepreneurs in order to make this happen. So I can also create a marketplace by which teachers can post, I want to do this project with my class of these folks, and this is what I need for materials, and this is the amount of money you can sponsor, and a group of people can sponsor. Part of his cleverness is that you, like for example, when I was first being pitched on this, I brought up the web page and I said, okay, let me take a look at this. And I typed in entrepreneurship, because that's what matters to me. And I typed in autism, because my wife is a speech language pathologist. So I was kind of thinking, okay, where would these two intersect? And there was a classroom teaching essentially what are subclinical children socialization skills through building and selling stuff in marketplaces. And I funded the whole project right away, because that was something that was an intersection of my wife's and my causes. So now the question becomes, how do you apply that to your own life? Because you think, well, I get it, you deploy the technology, you build an organization. I've just been talking about for-cause organizations rather than for-profit. And I can see how that all applies, but the same thing applies to when you think about your own individual lives. Because you think about, okay, how do I achieve breakout results? How do I do something that gives me a sense of meaning and has a massive outsized scale impact on the world? And those tools exist, right? It's particularly plastic or easier with software, but we have a whole revolution that's coming in, like open source hardware, right? Open source aviation. There's all kinds of things that you say, okay, there's technology trends, there's productivity trends, there's wealth trends, there's knowledge and information, there's ways that people can network or come together in order to make this stuff happen. How do I assemble the networks of people, the skills, the abilities, and how do I do projects that have scale impact? And part of what's interesting about scale impact is it's not just, oh, it's a million or 100 million people. That's interesting. That's what I kind of think of as the y-axis. But there's also the x-axis, which is over time. And part of the reason the for-cause organizations I was mentioning are something that capture not just my money, but my time, is because if you can create something that has an ongoing identity, like it has enough revenue in each of these things because they're low-cost entities, it does not take that much money to both get them started and keep them running, you then also begin to compound scale over time. And then that begins to have a massive impact on the world. And so I think the kinds of things that you can do as a breakout, right, are now much more than they ever used to be. And so the thing is to think about what kinds of Archimedean levers, what kinds of competitive differentiation of what you know or what you see in terms of what you can do. And I think clearly the results can be astounding. So when I was asked to come here and talk to you, I get asked to talk a lot. I usually say no. The reason it was a very quick and obvious yes is because you are all part of this project to say, what can individuals do, thinking about the future, applying the fact that technology and scale and the way that we organize, the way that we share information is at an accelerating pace. And there's something that I as an individual can do about it, and I, with my network around me, can do about it. So with that, I congratulate you on your Singularity University projects and stay. I look forward to seeing some of them. And I wish you the success in your projects, your careers, and your future life. Thank you.